Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Amanda Caden, and I live in New Jersey. For about almost 10 years, I was the head cake decorator of a bakery here in New Jersey. It was called Cutest. During the pandemic, it closed down for non-pandemic reasons. At that time, I was also pregnant, so I've just kind of been on an extended maternity leave, but just recently decided to start a business, and I called that Sweet Tomorrow's Kitchen. It's a play on my maiden name, which is Morrow. Um, while I was at the bakery, my main responsibilities were making the cake choppers, like this little guy here. The one we're actually making, I made 7 years ago. So it was like I made it for the first time today again. um, so I would make the cake toppers one day of the week and then talk to the clients another day of the week. Um, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would decorate mostly by myself between 35 to 60 cakes. And those would be single tier to 5, 6 tier wedding cakes. We were a team of only 4 women. So one girl would bake and stack the cakes. The other one would do the dirty ice and crumb coat. And then I would do the finishing coat or the fondant. And the owner would do the consultations mostly. So I know I look young, but I've been doing it for a while. So hopefully I have some things to share with you. So I went ahead just really quickly and made another version of the topper. The original version has a bow in the hair, so I guess you could say she's female. So I also made a male version of the Easter Bunny as well. So I'll go over how you can add the bow tie because you do need to add some neck support. There was a couple things on the supply list that I didn't mention. So if you are making it along with me and you want to grab them if you have in your kitchen, it was just a little bit of vegetable shortening. It's optional. If you don't have it, you don't need it. And cornstarch to roll out your fondant. Okay, so I'm going to put this guy back here, but if anybody needs to see a close up again, just let me know. So what I like to start with are any features that I want to dry hard first. So that's going to be our bow tie or hair bow and the carrot. So the carrot in my photo is standing straight up. So we're going to make it like we would a lollipop.
Amanda, it's Karen. I've got a question.
Yes.
What size cake form was that rabbit on?
So he's on a 6-inch.
6-inch. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And Amanda, is that a styrofoam cake form?
Yeah, this is just styrofoam.
Okay.
Now I like to make my toppers, for the most part, depending on what they are, I call them semi 3D, which I dry them laying flat on a sheet pan with parchment or on my Silpat. But if you prefer your topper to be completely 3D, then you would want to dry it on a cake form so that it doesn't get a little bit of a flat back here.
Right,
and you would
right.
also
Okay.
want to put some kind of a support in the head, either a ball of tin foil or a styrofoam round or an egg shape. I think for this one, I would probably use an egg shape because he's not completely fat. But if you wanted him to be, a full circle here, you would do the styrofoam ball, and then this would just be solid fondant. Right now, this guy is just completely solid fondant. Also, using something inside the head will save you money because you're not using so much fondant.
Okay.
But
so I wanted to let everybody know, real quick, those styrofoam things that Amanda is using, I am stocked in every size, shape, form you could possibly find. I do not need them all anymore. If anybody would be interested in different sizes or whatever, get a hold of Christy or myself, and I will be more than happy to ship them out to you.
All right, thank you.
I would be interested. Thank you.
So for the purpose of this video, I'll do semi 3D. So it's drying flat on my Silpat here so you guys can see it instead of it standing up will be, I think, a little bit harder. Okay, so we're going to start with the carrot. So just kneading the fondant. And I like to use dowels just that I've cut, just like shish kebab sticks, but you can use lollipop sticks, wire, floral wires, whatever you're comfortable with. And I like to rub the fondant onto the silicone mat to remove the back crease. And then I'll roll it out. Okay, and then I apply the stick in. If this wasn't something that was going to be standing straight up, I would have dipped the stick in a little bit of water or piping gel to secure it a little bit more. But since it's going to be standing in the cake, it's not going to slide down anymore because it'll be dry by the time you do it. I usually like to make my decorations for like a Friday, Saturday order on Tuesday or Wednesday, so they've dried almost completely hard.
I'm sorry, Amanda, did you say what kind of fondant you were using?
Oh, no, I didn't. So I'm using Satin Ice. That's just my preferred brand. It's just always what I've used. I always find myself getting a little tripped up when I switch brands because the texture is a little different. The dry time is different. And I also like their gum paste. But so for right now, I'm just using fondant. But when we get to the head, I'm going to switch between fondant and gum paste for stability reasons. So I'm just going to take any kind of a tool that you have that has a fine point. This could even just be a knife, or I know like a lot of the fondant toolkits have something with a thin edge, or even just an X-Acto knife or a paring knife. And I'm just going to make the carrot marks. So
while you're doing that, Amanda,
Mhm.
is it possible to tilt your camera, your forward-facing camera, down just a teensy bit?
oh yeah,
Perfect. Thank you.
yep. Let me just make sure it doesn't fall.
We will laugh if so.
Okay, so with the carrot, I just do one way, the other way, then in the middle, just to make it look carroty, if you will. And you can also use different tools. So you have different levels of scoring on it. I'm going to do some with the knife so they're deep. And I'm going to apply some to the back, although it's going to dry on the back, they'll become very light. And for the top of the carrot, I'm just going to make a little hole. So when I put the leaves in, they have a little bit of a starting place. Just like that. Okay, so I'll move on to the leaves of the carrot with the green fondant. And for food colorings, my preference is Chef Master food coloring gel color for fondant, but I also like AmeriColor, and I think I just have Chef Master, but I have some that are like this, and then these are like the new version. Thought that might happen.
I said I was going to laugh if it did. Now I feel bad laughing.
Okay. All right, so for leaves, I like to roll the fondant as thin as I can. And for the veins on leaves, they sell mats that will make them look very realistic. I could not find mine, so we're going to use just our fondant tools. So my fondant is pretty thin. And if you have a leaf cutter, you can use that, or just an X-Acto knife. I'll use the X-Acto knife just for anyone who doesn't have a leaf cutter, so that you have some idea of what to do. Just cutting leaf shape. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can leave some bits missing so it looks a little bit more natural, like this. There's little pieces I left missing. All right, and then I'm going to use again, a very fine tool. Go ahead, and this is just like a pointer stick, or even you could just use a dowel. And I'm just going to draw the details on the leaves. Just one center vein and then small veins branching off of that. Okay, and so this is where the piping gel or water would come into play, or they have all those edible glues out as well. I just put some on the carrot and in the hole I made as well. And then I stuff one leaf kind of in that hole. And then the other one just rests behind it. And then I lay it down flat to dry. You could put something if you wanted under the leaves to give more of an effect to it. So if I put a dowel and bubble it up, I don't know if you can see that, it's a little small, but basically you just put something under the leaf and push it up so that it's not laying flat. Now it looks more realistic because it has a wave to it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so carrot's done. So I'll do a pink bow. We'll do a hair bow. Now, the bow I like to use pure gum paste. It will dry harder than the fondant and quicker. And it's also a little bit sturdier. So when we go to dry it, we can get these holes in the middle. It won't just fall completely flat.
Hey, Amanda, where do you get your gum paste from?
So I actually have a cake supply store near me. That's all they sell are cake supplies, but there's a website that I use. Its official name is fileandholding.com, but if you just do cakedeco, DECO.com, it brings you to the same site.
Okay.
And they sell everything you could ever want.
Well, I get all my fondant from Fonderific, and
Mhm.
I absolutely love their fondant, and
Right.
you know,
You can
especially since
also-
it tastes like chocolate. So
You can also add Tylose to fondant, which is a powder. I don't really know
Right.
what it is, but it makes it firmer and dry harder. Just gonna wash the green. I have a little green on my hand.
I'm gonna make note of that website, Kirsty.
Yeah, cakedeco.com.
Cake
Yeah.
deco.
Cake Deco,
Cake
yep.
Deco. Yeah.
So for the bows, I don't like to go as thin as the leaves because you need them to have some substance to them, unless you're going to use some kind of a form to dry them, which you could do. You can use even just one of your tools that's round, or a straw, a fat straw. But we're just gonna keep it a little thicker. I need my cornstarch, which is holding up the iPad. Okay. Okay, so for bows, there's a lot of different ways to make them. You can use an oval cutter and use the oval for each side of the bow. I think they even have bow cutters now that kind of looks like sunglasses, and you fold them over. The easiest technique, I think, is just basically a strip, like a long rectangle. And I like to make the bow in two parts. I don't like to do the whole thing. I like to make the two halves. So I made this strip and I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to just thin it out a little bit more. And then pick which side you like better. Fold it. And then let me see if I can do this the right way with the camera. So then I just take my thumbs and with a finger behind, I push that up and where my thumbs were, I fold that in. That creates the little cute rivets. And you could use a tool and make more definition on the bow. Sometimes I like to just leave it like this. I think this looks cute, but on this one I made, I went in with a tool and just defined them. But I'll leave this one like plain since I have that one. Okay, so again, just folding over, going in and up. Then I put those two pieces together, make sure size-wise they're good, and I make sure I have a good center as well. And then for the center bit of fabric, in the original picture, I did just a plain strip and then used the tool and embellished it. Here I did more of a fabric design, so I'll show you that design. So I'm just going to cut a rectangle again, longer than I think I need, so I can trim away. Now this I do want to be really thin because I want to be able to get the fabric look. So I make it bigger than I need again. And I'm just going to even out the edges. So the first thing I do to get a fabric look is fold the edges down just a little bit on each side. And then I take some dowels and put it underneath. And basically those are just there to create the ripply look for me. But I'm going to use another dowel and go in between each dowel. So it goes like up, down, up, down. And every time I do the dowel in between, I pull them together to help create the ripple. Okay, so with that technique, this is what you get. And you could do this in a much larger form if you wanted to do like a draped look over a wedding cake. You've seen like the fondant drapes one way, then the other. So this would be that same technique that I would use. Does anybody need me to explain that better than I did? Okay, so now I'm going to use a bit of the piping gel to secure the two pieces of the bow to each other, as well as the band to the bow. And then when I'm doing this on the bow, I pinch each end and make a circle. And then I'll flip the bow over gently, put a little gel on the back, and make sure everybody is secure. And while the gum paste is still soft, just make any adjustments you need to. And here is the bow. Okay, so now the fun stuff, the bunny. So for the bunny head, I like to do a mix of gum paste and fondant. More fondant than gum paste, so probably like 25 to 75% of the two. 25 gum paste, the rest fondant. And we're going to start with the bunny head so that when we're making the feet and the ears and the hands, everything is size appropriate. You don't want to start with something else and then you have giant hands and a little head.
How much do you think, just on average, it costs to make this topper?
Judging for what I paid for, I don't know what the fondant would cost everywhere, but at the cake supply store, a 5-pound, is this 5 pounds? Yeah, 5-pound bucket of the satin ice is $30. I think I sometimes can get it on Amazon for 25. Cost wise, using the fondant, probably only $8 of fondant. But then you also need your, if you had nothing and you needed to make it, you need the food colorings, the luster dust or petal dust, the tools. But where I used to work for this topper, I would have charged $50. So it's quite a bit of profit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the fondant and the gum paste came together pretty nicely, but if you were having an issue getting them to come together where you felt like it's just not as pliable as you would want to get a smooth surface, that's where I use a little bit of the shortening. And when I'm working with just gum paste, I usually need in a little bit of shortening. It just makes it a little bit more pliable for me and a little bit easier to smooth out any creases I might have. The only thing it can affect if you put too much is your ability to add any colors after the fact, because it'll make it a little too greasy. So if you went to put luster dust on fondant that had too much shortening, it wouldn't flow on like dust. It would kind of smear the color. I've also had a problem trying to use the edible pens if there's too much shortening, because same thing, it has like a greasy surface. So usually just like a fingertip's worth of the shortening is all I need.
And what if you just have fondant? Will it still turn out pretty good, or?
Yeah, if you just have fondant, it'll turn out fine. If you needed to stand it up, if you wanted to do the completely 3D version out of just fondant and you stood it up to dry, as it dries, it kind of goes like this and you get a little bit of rippling. So that's why I like to mix in the gum paste, because it helps keep it from sinking down. But if you wanted to just use fondant and stand it up to dry, then you would just need to use some kind of support inside.
Okay, but you could, like, what if you laid it down to dry? It's just, I only have fondant right now, so I'm just wondering.
You
Okay.
just lay it down to dry and it'll be completely fine.
Okay, thank you.
So when I'm adding some kind of a support to my topper and it's not the shape, so if I'm using a circular ball but my rabbit head is not circular, what I would do is I would make the shape, then I would take my X-Acto knife, cut a hole just where I'm going to be putting, so I would be putting a support here, not in this section of the head, and I would open it up. Then I would use this just for demonstration. I would put the styrofoam or the tinfoil support, close it, recenter, and then I would work to smooth it out, but that would add support. But we won't do that for now. We'll just dry it a little flat. Okay, so we're gonna need, and then I'm also gonna rub it on the silicone to get any creases out of the back. When I first started making toppers, I didn't know about this trick and I would sit there forever trying to rub the creases, but this takes away the creases almost instantly. Okay. Now I'm just going to build up the shape of the head. And this is where it's kind of just artist's choice. If you want a round head, you can make a round head. If you want an oval head, you could do that. But this bunny has more of a teardrop shaped head. I had a little bit of an air bubble that I popped, so I'm gonna re-smooth that front piece. And then what I wanna do, this is gonna be the front, so I wanna make sure it's sloped and coming down, so when you're looking from the side, it still has a good shape to it. So I'll take my hand and push that out. And then looking at it from the front view, I want the cheeks to have some dimension as well, leaving room for the snout. Okay. Now at this point, I would lay it down and work on it, but I'm gonna try to keep it. So I think it's just easier for you guys to see like this. Okay, so where I put the eyelids, I like to just have a little bit of an indentation. My favorite way to do that is just to use my thumbs because hopefully they're the same size. So it's easy. So just above the nub I made, I'm gonna make sure it's even. So I very lightly press first and make very light indentation and just make sure I like the way that looks for the eyes. Then I go back and push in harder. Okay. So I've made deeper. And then I'm going to use a ball tool and complete the eye shape just as indentations because we're going to fill in with the eyelids, but it just makes it so the eyelids can sit in a little bit. I think it looks a little bit more realistic. You could just plop them right on top and that would look fine as well. Okay. So this is what I have now. Looks like a creepy little skull. Okay, so it's starting to droop. So I'm going to go ahead and lay it down as I keep working on the other features. And when I do lay my toppers down, I take my fingers and I just round out that edge that was sitting flat to help keep the head looking round. Okay. So I'm going to just move on to making the snout. That could be all fondant. Does anybody have any questions about making the head shape or putting the support into the head?
The only thing I was thinking is you said like foil or a ball. I'm assuming same thing could be with like Rice Krispie treats or something.
Yes, if you wanted it to be completely edible, then you can use Rice Krispie treats. Or you could also, if you're someone who plans ahead and you have the order for a while, just take gum paste and make a ball and set that to dry for a week or so. And that'll just kind of make like a rock hard little sugar ball you can put inside. Okay, so for the snout, I'm just gonna roll out a little circle. And I want it to be pretty thick and puffy, so it has some dimension to it. So I'm gonna leave the fondant probably maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. And I don't know where my circles are, so I'm just gonna use an X-Acto knife. It's so weird for me to do this sitting down because I've always done it standing up. Okay, I'm gonna check the size. And then what I do when I'm doing something like this, I wanna pull down my edges. So it's not like a cut edge, it's more of a waterfall of an edge. It's also going to look more like the snout's coming out of the face instead of it was just stuck on. Using the piping gel or water, gonna put it on. Okay, so that goes there like that. And we're gonna cut out the slot for the nose, and then we're gonna make a mark down the center. So I have this handy dandy little tool that is rabbit nose shaped. So I'm gonna use that. But if you don't have that, you just cut a triangle from the tip of the snout to make this here. See if I could do it this way. Okay, and then using a knife, just separating the two and adding that dimension there. And that could be as pronounced or as light as you want it, but we're gonna put dust in it later to make it pop. So I like to make it pretty deep. And if you want your bunny to have whiskers, then you can just use a dowel, or I have a little poker, and I'm just gonna poke some whisker marks. I just think it looks cute. Okay, and then we're gonna add a little lip here, which basically is just gonna be like a little worm of fondant that we're gonna flatten out and attach. And then optionally, you can add pink fondant as a little tongue, or when we're dusting later, you can dust in there with the pink. I prefer the dust. I just think it looks a little bit more matchy-matchy since the rest of the bunny is dust. So I just rolled out a little worm of fondant and then flattened it. And this is something you just want to eyeball, so I think mine's a little too long, so I'm going to cut a little bit off of each end. Okay, and when I'm happy with the size, I just put piping gel on each end, not through the center of it, because I'm just going to glue each end so that I can kind of leave it open a little bit. And since it's tiny, if you use one of your little tools to help you pop it up. Okay. So this is what we have right now, but I'm just going to use my tool to adjust the bottom of the mouth to have it just how I like it to look. Basically just using my tool to smooth and make it look a little bit more cohesive to the snout. Okay. Just cleaned up the bottom. And if you looked from this direction, it looks more like it's blended into the nose. Okay. So I'm going to do the eyelids. Normally I would say let's do the ears, but I'm going to switch to gum paste for that. So since I have fondant, we'll do the eyelids. The ears I like to do a little bit more in advance because I want them to dry a little bit off of the bunny head. Because if we just try to put them right on the bunny head, they're going to flop. as bunnies do. Okay, so for the eyelids, there's no specific shape they need to be. If you want your eyes to be round, they could be round. I have kind of like a semi-oval look, so I'm just gonna roll out some fondant and cut it to be about the size of my thumb because that's what I use to make the impression. Okay, so since I'm freehanding and not using any kind of a cutter, I'm gonna take that piece, put a little cornstarch on the back, put it onto my fondant and trace and cut around it with the X-Acto. And when you're using an X-Acto knife to cut anything, if you actually cut it inverted, like if you were tracing a picture, if you turn the picture the opposite way that you want it, the part of the fondant that was down on the table, if you turn that over, it actually has a nicer edge than what was facing up because it gets a little scraggly from the X-Acto knife. So I'm going to use what was facing down. And just putting a little of the piping gel to hold them in place. I'm actually going to trim off a little bit. Okay. And now to help give the impression that the eyelid is actually in the face, I guess you would say, I would just take a small tool. I have these silicone ones which work really well for it, but you could use this one that I've been using as well. And I just push the very edge in around this eyelid. And then I use the tool just to clean it up as well. In my personal opinion, it's these little tiny details that really can make animal and character toppers come to life. So I never want to skip these little details. Okay, eyelids are on. We'll save eyelashes and the nose for later. I'm going to leave out a little bit of fondant for the hair, but I want to do the hair after I know where I'm putting the ears. So for ears, I like to use solid gum paste. If you don't have it, that's fine. I'm going to show you how I dry something off of the main topper, but once it's dry, how do you know it's going to fit onto the topper when it needs to be up against? So we're going to cut it out and then mush it to be the shape of the side of the bunny's head, but then leave it off the bunny's head to dry. I hope that made sense. So depending on what you're going to put inside the ear, that's going to determine how thick you're going to make your ear. If you're going to use something like this, the ear needs to at least just be thick enough that if you're going to put this into the ear to support it, you're not going to see it. If you have a floral wire, then it could be very thin. I'm going to use the wires. And I'll show you how thin I go with the wires. Still pretty thick because bunny ears aren't that thin.
Amanda?
Yeah.
What gauge wire?
Oh, I forgot those exist. I am using an 18 gauge. I usually have in my collection of wires, whatever they sell at Michael's, which I think is like an 18, a 20, a 22. I like to just have them all. Okay, so same thing with the bunny ears. If you have some kind of a tool that you think looks like the shape you want, like a giant leaf cutter, go ahead and use that. I don't have that with me, so I'm gonna just use an X-Acto knife. Sorry if you hear my baby crying, don't worry, he's with grandma. Okay, so I cut one since I'm freehanding and check it to the bunny head and make sure it's appropriate size. So I do like the size of that one. So I'm gonna just do that carbon copy that I did before. Okay. So they're pretty thick even for my wire, but if I tried to shove like a lollipop stick in here, I would probably see the stick, which I wouldn't want. All right, just using the mat to smooth out any rough edges. So now I would like to have the detail in the center of the ears. So I use a ball tool. And I'm going to use the smallest ball tool I have, and go around the ear to define the center of it. So this will stay fat and this will go in. Okay. So this is the definition I got. And two options, you can leave it like this and have this still be puffy, or take your larger ball tool and smooth that out so it looks just like it goes in and back out. So this is what I have. One ear I leave pointy, and then I'm going to do the second ear, and we're going to do it flopped over a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just pull on it a little bit to elongate this, and then I'm going to fold it down like that. And then this is where I'm going to put in my wires. Actually, no, I lied. Don't put your wires in yet. First, you want to shape it to the bunny's head. So you can do that by either just pushing them together to get the shape, or laying the head on top of the ear and cutting around. You know what? I'll do one of each. So when we're putting them on, we can see the difference. Okay, now that they're shaped, I'm going to put my wire in the center. And put them aside to dry. Okay, so now we need some bunny feet and some bunny hands.
Is she still crying?
Yeah, he's screaming. He
Oh.
hates bedtime. He'll
You
just
want-
scream.
You want to
Until-
go check it out? We can talk.
The little
to-
one's screaming right now too. She's not wanting to sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 5 minutes. If he's still going crazy, I'll see if she needs help.
Okay,
For a second, I was like, oops, am I not on mute? My baby.
because we can talk amongst ourselves while you go handle the baby.
Okay. So what did I say we're doing? Feet. Okay. So feet, I just used fondant. No, I'm sorry, hands. I guess her hands are feet too, but we're gonna do the ones under the head first. Those are just free shaped teardrops, and then I mush them. So I just get 2 similar size pieces of fondant, roll them. Have 2 balls about the same size. I'm going to teardrop them like this. Then I'm just going to flatten out the back so it's very thin so we can kind of get it under the bunny's head. So it started like this, then I just used my hand and flattened it out. Then for this fat part, which is the part you see, I pinch to flatten the front. And then I flatten this way. And then again, just using any of those tools you might have, I'll go ahead and use what is this called? Somebody help me. Palette knife to make the toes. Just making indentations. Okay, and then we're going to set those aside. I do recommend when you make them, check to make sure that they're size you want, complementary to the head. But these are good. All right, so for the feet in front, that's going to be a combination of white and pink. You can use an oval cutter if you have. I don't have one here, so we're going to do freehand again. Just using fondant. And I'm going to use the pink gum paste fondant that I used for the bow. It won't make a difference that it has some gum paste in it. So first I'm going to roll my white. And you want them to have some definition to them, so they're not going to be too thin. And then before I cut them out, I'm going to put my pink on and roll it in a little bit. So it looks like one instead of pink glued on top of white. So the pink I'm going to roll fairly thin. Okay, so just with my X-Acto, cutting an oval. When I do the pink, I want to make sure it's smaller than I want the feet because the white needs to show. Then I'm going to put the pink on the white. And roll it in. Yeah. Do you want me to come up and help you? Okay. She says she's fine. She's getting more milk.
Oh, you done doing your thing?
No, they're here.
Oh.
My mother-in-law says hi, everybody.
So,
Hi, mom-in-law.
did I pour this in the other bottle?
You can put it right in the same bottle. Yeah. Okay, so I've rolled the pink onto the white, so pretty much now they're one. And I'm just gonna go around the pink, making sure that some of the white is exposed, more at the top for the toes. Now this is not completely an oval, but if you use an oval cutter, you would just go back and trim away a little bit. More kind of like an egg shape. Okay, so this is what I'm starting with. I've kind of have some toe definition, but I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna take another like little flat pointy tool and push the toes in. So now I have this, but now I'm gonna smooth those around, make it look more realistic, and smoothing down that edge again. I don't want the edge to look like I cut it. I want it to waterfall down onto the mat. Okay, so 2 bunny feet for the front of the cake. All right, so let's put the finishing details on the face out of fondant, and then we're going to go in with the petal dust. So first I'm going to give him a little pink nose. Basically just making a little chocolate chip shape and putting it right into that indentation you made. But then to make it look a little bit more realistic, I'm going to pinch down on this portion here. And it kind of just gives it a little bit more of a animal nostril look.
Amanda, are you doing, if you were normally doing this, would you put those accent pieces after the head's dried? Or are you doing it before it's dried?
So these facial features I would normally do before it dried so that they all kind of dry together and become one. The dust, it just depends. The dust I could do before it dries, or I could do it after it dries. It doesn't make as much of a difference. If I feel like the fondant, depending on your humidity, where you are, if the fondant feels a little sweaty or a little tacky, I would let it dry before putting the dust, because that tackiness or that sweatiness is going to make your dust go on more like a foundation instead of a blush. The ears, I will put the ears on, you know, when we're all done, but normally I would leave those ears until at least tomorrow, until they're completely hard before I would put them on. Okay, so nose is on.
And if you wait till
I'm gonna go ahead.
sorry, if you wait till tomorrow, you'll still be able to get the ears in the head, okay?
Yes, so the head, because it's pretty thick fondant in this portion, it's gonna be dry on the outside, but the inner layers are still gonna be soft, so it'll go through. I've left something, you know, to dry for 2-3 days before I went and stuck something through, and it'll still go through. Very, very rarely have I made something where I needed to take the pointy end of a skewer and just like very lightly tap it with my rolling pin before then putting the product in. Okay, so the hair, pretty self-explanatory. You just roll some noodles. And I bunch the hair together before I put it on, but you can kind of build the hair on the head if you want, but I like to just make the little bit first before I put it on. And with the gel in the center of the head, just apply the hair where you like. You can even add a couple little strands of pink if you wanted her to have some highlights. If you were going for like a more realistic look and you had some brown or tan dust, you could do some of that under the hair and even on the cheeks as along with the pink, and that would give kind of the appearance of like when animals have like white and brown fur mixed in, or it's not completely white, that would give more of a little bit of a more realistic fur look. Okay, so now we're going to go with the black fondant and make the eyelashes. I don't know if they were popular where you guys are all from, but I made about 150 unicorn cakes in 2019, so I'm so over making eyelashes. But if you haven't made one of those, you're gonna just roll a fondant strip for the bottom layer of the eye. And you want those to be even, so I just roll a strip that's long enough for both eyes and cut the size piece I need. Use a little bit of piping gel if you need. Sometimes I feel like black fondant, at least in the Satin Ice brand, is sticky enough. I don't need to glue it, but. So now it's on, but the eyes are kind of wonky. So I'm just going to use my tools to balance them out. I'll try to do it this way so you can see. Just so they have more of an even shape. And then for the lashy parts, very thin wormies, I usually just go like this and then cut that in half and just use the end on each side. So I have that. Okay. And then just to repeat on the other side. Okay, eyelashes are on. All right, so let's see, we have the hair, the eyelids, eyelashes, the nose, the snout, the mouth, the feet, ears, hands, and the carrot. Okay, so now it's time to put the dust. Brand dust I'm using is Crystal Colors in baby pink. I got it at that cake supply store. You can probably find it online, but that Cake Deco website, they have a ton of different brands. I like to use a matte petal dust, but you could use a luster dust if you wanted. So first thing you want to do, let's start with the hands, is go in anywhere where there's a crease with a thin brush. Where's my thin brush? So I'm using a very small brush. into the pink, tapping out the extra, and then I'm just gonna go into the crease.
Amanda,
Yeah.
do the boy bunnies get those kind of eyelashes, and do the boy bunnies get blush?
So Boy Bunny, I just did the line. I didn't add the extra lashes. Can you see? Is that better to see? But
And then he gets blush.
I did do the blush on him because I felt like it was still Easter appropriate, and bunnies do still have pink features regardless. But
Okay,
if you felt like you didn't want to, or some people are particular if they're having a cake for a boy, they like don't want any pink on it, then you can use tan color, or I do like cappuccino, they call it, in a petal dust. That's one of my favorites. I like to mix that with flesh tone, and I like to use that on animals. It kind of makes like I want it not like tan, but it's like tan with a little bit of like the flesh tone, which is like a corally color.
okay.
It makes a really nice shade.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go in the creases, and then I take a fluffier brush, either something like this or a big one like this, and I just go over. It just makes it so it's not so straight of a line that you put in. It kind of brings it out to the edges. Okay, same thing on the other foot. Now for these, I'm going to go around the edges with my fluffy brush. Going around the edge with a dust really just adds a level of definition. Especially when it's up against the cake. It's a good contrast. Then I'm also just going to define the pink area with a little bit extra dust. So I went from this to this. And you can even use your bigger brush to just blend it all in together. Okay, done. What looks really good if you have a brown or a cappuccino dust is to put some on the carrot, because it looks like dirt, like the carrot came out of the ground. Even if you have a green, you can go on the leaves. It just adds like a good definition. Even brown on the leaves makes them look very realistic. Okay, so we're gonna go in the entire center part of the ear. So I like to use the fat brush. And player's choice of how dark you like to go in the ears, but I went pretty light. Okay. Now the face, I always go a lot lighter because I can add more, but I can't take it away. So I'm going to start with the small brush, doing in the creases. First, I want to go into the mouth. And I'm going to do some eyeshadow.
Amanda.
Yep.
Question for you. What brushes do you use? Can you use like an actual painting brush like you would get like in the arts and crafts section, or do
Yes.
you? do
You
you?
can use an art brush. You want to just be careful. Go for a higher quality because the hairs on the cheap ones will fall out. So this is a Craft Smart, which I believe is from Michael's, these blue ones I got. But these are Wilton brand, these fluffy ones.
Yeah, I
But
have some of those, but I don't have any real little ones.
yeah,
And I seen a set at the store, but I wasn't real sure if we could get, if we could use those in that come in the arts and crafts section.
yep, you can.
Okay, cool, sweet, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a little boo-boo. There was a little bit of piping gel where I put the eyelash. So on the one eye, you can see the dust kind of more did like a paint on instead of a dust on, which is what I was trying to explain before. If you could see it with the right lighting.
So is there a fix for that if you do mess up?
So you could take some water and a clean paintbrush and clean it away. And then you have to let it dry at least a day so that the water that you just put on dried. Or you can use vodka, which dries quicker if you have that on hand. Or depending on like where this feature is, I wouldn't be able to fix it. But say it was the mouth that it happened on, you can just take the mouth off and put a new mouth on.
You can get your hands on Everclear, that works even better than vodka.
Yeah, definitely.
Just don't drink it. You might be sleeping for days.
Okay, and then with this brush or with a big brush, you're actually going to do the blush on the bunny. I'll use this brush just since I haven't used it for you guys yet. And that's just going to be just putting like blush on yourself. There
She's
she
so
is. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the ears on. Like I said, I would let them dry normally, but we got to put them on. All right, so this is the ear that I cut with the X-Acto knife to the shape of the bunny's head. Let's use some packing gel. I'm gonna actually move the hair. Come with me here. Go back later. This is the one I mushed, just pushing it into the bunny's head to get the shape. So I think cutting it gave a little bit of a better because you can see, but that's where you would then go with your hair and hide a piece like that. And nobody would know. And then the bow, same thing. You want the bow to be dry. Since the bow was thinner than the ears and made it earlier, it's pretty dry already. So optional, you can just glue it on, but I like to use a little bit extra support. So I'm going to go ahead with a wire. And even though the bow is dry, like you were asking before, it's still going to go through. So the bow just went right through the head. And then I just took my tool and pushed the hair out of the way a little bit. Since the bow was dry, the hair needed to go in this little crack here.
That is so adorable.
Thank you. Okay, so the guy bunny is on my cake round. So let me just scoot this one back here. So when I decorated this cake, I took a large circle cookie cutter and I pressed it onto the buttercream. And then what I did was Oreo crumbs in that circle. Then I used a leaf tip and went around and just made, leaves around the Oreo to be like a little dirt patch. Then head went on the cake. But first I took a stick and stuck it in the head. So then they go in the cake together like that, just to keep the head in place. Then you take the feet and tilt and put them like so. Now, if you were gonna do the boy bunny, what I would do when I was making the bow tie is I would take a circle cutter smaller than the head and cut a few circles in the bow tie color. So if you can see, there's mint green under there. That helps lift the head off of the cake. So then you have room to get the bow here. Because if you didn't do that, you'd end up with this kind of just blocking the bunny's face. So you put a couple circles and a little bit of smaller bow, and then bunny sits up more like this. Okay, and then I used just buttercream to secure the feet to the front of the cake. One foot here and one foot there. So it kind of just looked like the bunny was popping out of the cake. And then carrot goes straight in and sticks out. And you could do a couple carrots as well, or even a few carrot tops and one shooting out carrot. I think I covered everything. Did I miss anything? Does anybody have any questions? I feel like I talked a lot.
It's adorable.
Thank you.
I missed
they
the
really
first
are
part.
cute.
I missed the first part. Is it going to be a replay or?
Yeah, I recorded it. It'll be in the section where it always is.
Okay, good. I thought it was 6 o'clock Central Time. So I was off.
Who knows with me? Who knows? Yeah, it'll be recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Or even questions about something else? I've made a lot of toppers, so if you have something coming up you have a question about.
I guess my question, I'm just new to kind of working with fondant, is how do you keep it from, getting wrinkly? I noticed that you don't wear gloves. First I was wearing gloves and I noticed that's like a big no-no.
Yeah, so with my fondant decorations, since I don't wear gloves and since there are non-edible components to them, I always just put a little disclaimer that they're made of edible material, but they're not for consumption.
Right.
So that kind of gets around it. But when you're working with the fondant, when I was kind of picking it up, it'll start to crinkle. So best recommendation is to handle it as least as you can once it's how you want it. And then another trick, if you do get a crease, is using that shortening while the fondant's still wet. Put a little bit on your fingertip, but very little. And the greasiness of that will re-moisten the fondant and allow you to smooth out that crease. But just remember that wherever you put the shortening, you can't then put the dust or go back and paint it with a food coloring because it'll have a greasy slick. Although the greasiness does dry in a few days. So if you did it far in advance, the greasiness would dry enough that you could dust it or paint it.
Okay.
Amanda, you can do that same thing with one of those steamers, can't you? If you have access to a steamer.
The steamer won't remove the creases that are like deep. any like little teeny bits of elephant skin, which is when, which is a term for just when the fondant gets a little ripply on the very first layer.
Oh, okay, okay.
The steamer will smooth those and gloss those over, but any deep creases, let me try to give you an example. Okay, so I have like a crease in the fondant. Can you even see that? That crease there. There's also some pink on my bunny head. So I just put a little bit of shortening on my finger and I rub it. And the crease is smooth and gone. And so I could do it again with this crease. And it's smooth. Does that explain it?
Yes.
Okay. And when you're fondanting a cake in general, to avoid the creases and the cracking, my biggest tip is just to work as quick as possible, kneading, rolling out, and then putting the fondant on the cake as quick as possible with each step. And the fondant will, the more you do it, the less the fondant will crack, because you'll get quicker each time you do it. Did anybody make the bunny while I was working that they want to show?
I'm making it, but I'm way behind.
I think someone was talking, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I can't hear it. I hear just
Oh,
faint.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my volume low because, okay. I was just, I'm making it, but I'm behind, so I don't have ears. or
Let us
stuff,
see.
but I
Let us
can-
see.
Yeah, let us see. Let us
Okay.
see.
Well, that's what the eyes are, then I have to- oh, eyeshadow. But okay.
Oh. Oh wait, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Ooh, I love it.
I was starting to do eyeshadow on the one eye, but
It's looking great.
it's not perfect. But hey, it's a start.
It looks great.
Like a
It
bunny.
looks very good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, you need to go take care of that baby.
I know. I'm sorry. You guys have to listen to him scream.
No, we barely can hear it. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You can always ship them to me if you want to. You know, I won't complain about it.
Amanda, are you, what, do you have a Facebook page or?
Yes. So my Facebook page is just my name, Amanda Caden. And then my new business is Sweet. And then Tomorrows, but it's TWOMORROS Kitchen.
And I can put all of her contact info in the Facebook board if anybody wants to follow her or get in contact with her, and you know.
Yeah, do
Yeah, if
you
you
have
ever have
other
a question, you can
tutorials on
always.
some- I'm sorry. Do you have other tutorials on some other toppers you've done, or you just kind of keep it yourself?
Just really old ones for the company I used to work for, like 8-9 years ago. I should do some more because I've come a long way, but they're on YouTube.
It's dead, honey. I gotta find the charger.
No,
that's
not
on.
that one. Not that one.
I love her. Well, if you want to send us your YouTube channel, we can put that in the chat too. That'd be pretty cool. In the Facebook group.
Sure,
That'd be cool to see it.
of course.
Amanda, it's been a pleasure. You did a really good job.
Thank you. It was my first time doing anything live, so I hope
You did a good job. It's great.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
so much.
Amanda, you did phenomenal. Christy, those pictures I sent you of the forms,
Yes.
can you post them in the group so that after this is over, they can go take a look.
I will,
And,
absolutely.
you know, if you want something, just either get a hold of me or Christy. Let me know what sizes you want, what shapes you want, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. This will be, I'll probably upload it tomorrow into the website. If you cannot figure out how to get to it, just let Amanda or myself know and we will lead you in the right direction.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
All
Have
right.
a wonderful night.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Hey, Christy,
Yes, ma'am.
send me a link to the master class, will you, so I can save that page?
I will.
Because